I hear you got a little bit out of the president today regarding an announcement he's going to make tonight regarding a new tax cut. What did he say?
We did. I just joined a number of other anchors from a variety of networks, and we had a long lunch with the president, most of which was off the record. But as you just said, the president is polling very poorly as it relates to the economy. Well, he is definitely not hearing that, because tonight, get ready, he plans to announce that we are going into what he believes will be the 3 greatest years in our country's economic history, and we're just getting started. We should expect he is going to announce some sort of tax cut proposal that will be both corporate and personal, but it's not going to be a traditional tax cut, meaning he's not going to have to get Congress involved. So they said, get ready, it'll be in a different format. Obviously, Iran was a very hot topic. All of us have been saying we're going to get a big announcement. We're going to get a big announcement. It doesn't seem like something immediate. But what he did say was Iran wants a deal more than we do. However, they're unwilling to say the magic phrase, which is we will stop producing nuclear weapons. And for him, that's what this whole thing is about. Besides the tax cut announcement, there will be a few other economic announcements. And he also hinted at this payer protection plan, which he's most likely going to announce with a bunch of tech companies tonight. Remember, these are the tech companies building the huge data centers around the country, and you've reported on it. Many of the communities where these data centers are being built are fighting back against it. Just last week, there was a community in New Jersey that fought and won to not have a data center be built there. Well, tonight they're going to announce some sort of agreement with these tech companies that once these data centers are complete, they will be responsible for paying their own electricity bills for those areas, because that's the big issue, that the amount of electricity that they use is a huge drain on the community, and it's jacking up everybody's electric bills. So I believe what we're going to hear is some sort of an announcement that those companies who are building those AI centers, they'll be covering the costs.
Okay,
but
so
get ready.
That's one aspect.
It's going to be a long speech.
Yeah, they're always long, Stephanie. The energy is one aspect of AI. I wonder if you address the other aspect, which is the job losses. I mean, these AI tech CEOs have been talking about how 20% of the workforce is going to be eliminated. There's been even more dire predictions about every job that could possibly be touched by AI being touched by AI. And future predictions about what that's going to mean for the economy in general if you lay off the people who spend money. They're not going to be able to spend money any longer. Is he at all concerned about job losses, or is it just the energy stuff?
Listen, we did not get into those details, but if I were a gambling woman, and this is a man who has owned casinos in the past, I don't think he's going to get into the intricacies of job loss as related to AI. I think he's really going to roll with the big headline of these CEOs who are building these huge data centers that are huge money makers, and look at these data centers, look at these companies, how well they're doing when it comes to how their stocks are performing. I don't think he's going to get into the intricacies and the downside of what AI is going to do for jobs across the country. Yes.
I don't think he is either. I'm just saying it's a shocking, misstep by a president who claims to be fighting for the worker. I know those are his boys. Exactly. It's also something that we're not hearing from a lot of politicians. I mean, the prospect of many millions of people losing their jobs because of this technology, which is only going to get better and better and better, according to these CEOs, leading to more job layoffs and potentially a real fracturing of our economy. I mean, it's just, why is nobody tackling that right now before it starts to happen to us? But let me ask you about Iran, because I know the president talked about Iran. You just mentioned it a moment ago. He said they're not willing to say those magic words of no nuclear weapons. Did you get the sense that he's leaning toward a strike or something more?
I got the sense that he's ready. Do I feel like it's imminent? I definitely cannot answer that. But listen, they were positioned and ready to go in Venezuela for quite some time. And I think when we think about what the president's going to talk about tonight, I'm sure he's going to talk about the strike on Iran last year, which he would say was extraordinarily successful. I think we're going to see a similar sentiment when he talks about what happened in Venezuela. And while I don't think, and we don't know, that we're going to see something happen in the next 24 hours in Iran, He made it clear they want a deal more than he wants a deal, but it's all about nuclear. And unless they are willing to say no new nuclear, there's no deal to be had.
All right, let's talk more about the economy. Betsy Stevenson, how does the economy look right now? How's the situation for the president that he's going to be trying to address tonight?
You know, I think that people have a lot of anxiety around the economy. And part of it is inflation. They really, turned out to vote for him because he said he was going to solve inflation. Now, for ordinary people, solving inflation doesn't just mean what the Fed means, which is bringing the rate of inflation down to 2%. They actually wanted to see, price level come down. Now, I think that's an impossible task. So I'm not saying I would hold the president to that standard, but I think he's, really being held to a high bar on having done something on inflation. And instead, what they've seen is inflation continuing at very high levels compared to where the Fed wants it to be. So similar to where it was at the time that the president came into office. So it's only come down a little bit. And where we've continued to see price increases is places where the tariffs have been put on. So people can directly see that this president's policies are continuing to push up prices for things they care about, like coffee and bananas. So I think that's tough. We're also seeing that there is a smaller fraction of people who are employed. So that's the employment rate. You're going to hear the president say there's more employed people. Lucky for him, the population has been growing fast enough that even though people are less likely to be employed, we can still count them up and get to a higher number. He's, I bet, going to emphasize that. But when you think about the lower employment rate, you're really talking about a lot of people who don't have jobs. And look, I care about everybody in the United States. This president tends to care a lot about native-born, white, non-Hispanic people. Their employment rates are down too. So he's not even solving it for his base, even though I think he'll claim that he is. And we're seeing vacancy rates continuing to fall. So it's harder to find a job today if you don't have one than it was a year ago. All of that put together is creating a lot of economic anxiety. And I think if he comes out there and tells people the economy's great, I just don't know that it's going to land well.
Yeah, Steph, is that what he's going to do? Is he going to? I know he's going to announce these new proposals, but did you get a sense that he's going to acknowledge what people are feeling, which is that the economy is not working for them?
I don't necessarily. I think we're going to get more of the same of what we've gotten over the last few weeks. Think about the president's affordability speech in Iowa. You didn't see him talking to farmers and talking about what the tariffs have done and the economic pain it's causing them. The president likes to point to the stock market, which has done extraordinarily well. The president will likely talk about egg prices over the last year when he entered office. But of course, egg prices were skyrocketing when he entered office because of the bird flu. He'll likely talk about gas prices. So when you talk about affordability, the president often, separates housing into two categories. And for people who already own homes, we've seen the value of our homes go up. But for the millions of Americans that don't yet, we don't know if he'll make an announcement, but that's something that hasn't yet been addressed. We have got a housing affordability problem in this country that's not unique to Donald Trump. It's been a problem in this country for years. We do not have enough housing supply. But will the president talk about the economic pain people are facing? Most likely not. And it's extraordinary because the Biden administration sort of misdiagnosing how Americans felt about the economy really hurt former President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And it seems that President Trump, while branding and marketing is what he does, it's very hard to skim past and act as though people aren't feeling economic pain when that's our reality. And you could go after the media and say we talk about these stories or those stories. You can't BS people about what their insurance costs, about what groceries cost, about what schooling costs. Life's expensive in the United States. It's just where we are.